Formula 1 calendar is pretty established these days. We don't add tracks that often, and when we do, they're bangers like Vegas. But back in the early 2010s, we actually bounced around circuits quite a lot. Some left the calendar and then just never returned, never to be seen again in any form of motorsport. Now I thought we'd take a look through some of the most notable ones, starting with Valencia. The Valencia Street Circuit in, yes, Valencia, hosted the European Grand Prix from 2008 to 2012. And for most people, 5 years too many. In 2009, the race was so boring and poor that there was not a single overtake on track. Not one. A stat that would normally be held for a circuit like Monaco, and yet F1 continued to race there for years beyond that. The introduction of DRS did help the overtake somewhat, but not enough. The idea was relatively simple. The project was supposed to put Valencia on the map, as it were, transforming the area adjoining the circuit, which at that point was filled with warehouses, abandoned buildings, and alike, factories, that sort of thing. Then attract Formula 1 investors, and together with the America's Cup harbour that the circuit does go around, investors would be persuaded to invest in the area, build apartments, modern complexes, that sort of thing. That was the idea around it. Sadly, many people wanting lots of money and lining their own pockets kind of led to the demise of the circuit. But it didn't help that the circuit itself wasn't very good either. The circuit was designed by Hermann Tilke. Now, he has had a hand in developing and redeveloping many circuits over the years, going back to the A1 Ring, Hockenheim, Nürburgring, the Fuji Speedway, Bahrain International Circuit, even Circuit de Catalunya, but also street circuits such as Jeddah, Baku, and most recently, Las Vegas. He has experience in designing circuits, but what you have to remember is it's a street circuit. There are limitations, especially when the circuit has to go through certain areas. The track itself was a tight and twisty street circuit consisting of 25 turns over 5.419 kilometers. There was one long back straight, but mostly it was short turns before more corners, and some of them were very tight. The most iconic part of the circuit was actually the swing bridge that took the drivers over the water between turn 8 and turn 10. It looked cool on the TV screens, but from a driver's perspective, that part of the circuit, not that interesting. The most popular overtaking points were turn 12 and turn 17. Turn 12 being the turn after the long straight, and it's a spot between turns 12 and turn 13 that Hamilton and Maldonado came together in 2012. We should quickly just talk about the winners. In 2008 it was Felipe Massa driving for Ferrari. Then in 2009 it was Rubens Barrichello, then driving for Braun Mercedes. In 2010, no surprises, it was Sebastian Vettel for Red Bull Renault, and also in 2011 he won the race as well. And then 2012, it was Fernando Alonso for Ferrari. It's actually Timo Glock for Toyota, though, who holds the lap record at 1 minute 38.6. He made that in 2009. The original deal for Valencia was for 7 years, and it was signed by none other than Bernie Ecclestone, which was weird, considering that same Bernie Ecclestone said that no European country should hold 2 Formula 1 races in the same season. And as you know, there was already a Spanish Grand Prix held at Circuit de Catalunya. But Bernie signed the deal anyway. It's a little bit odd. The last 2 races of the contract, though, well, they weren't honoured after the Spanish city pulled the plug on the contract, and the reason was supposedly, well, they ran out of money. In fact, in 2014, Spain's prosecutor's office began an investigation into alleged corruption and embezzlement directly related to the contracts that were awarded for Formula One to race in Valencia. When Bernie Ecclestone penned the deal, he gave the rights to a company called Valmore Sport Group, led by former motorbike racer Jorge Martinez and Villarreal's president Fernando Roig. Spain's prosecutor's office named Francisco Camps, the former president of the Valencia region, then Dolores Johnson, a tourism official, as well as Jorge Martinez, the part owner, and then finally Bernie Ecclestone himself. There was even talk of Ecclestone being party to influencing an election in the region, which he was later cleared of. Don't sue me. It was all a very messy situation with pockets being lined, and it ultimately led to the decline of the race. There was talk of a plan to alternate the Spanish Grand Prix between Valencia and Barcelona for those next few years, but those plans fell through. And due to vandalism and lack of maintenance of the track, the decision was made to close the circuit in 2012. In 2013, it was reported that thieves had stripped everything of value from the circuit buildings. But despite that, you can still get a sense of the circuit that used to be there over a decade ago, with large parts of it still present. It's actually an odd scene. Due to this being a street circuit, a lot of the barriers are still up and have just been integrated into public areas. The pit buildings still stand, but they're more of an abandoned warehouse, but might I say, as pit buildings go, very impressive. A lot of the markings and road markings are still on the ground, including the pit boxes and track perimeter lines. Even some of the curbs are still there. In fact, some of them have been pulled up. It's quite a surreal scene. One of the runoff areas, well, that's now a car park, but large parts of the circuit have been integrated now into public areas, which is good to see. I imagine it was just more cost effective to do that than trying to remove the entire remnants of the track. They've even left some Armco barriers. It's ironic, actually, that despite the circuit being heavily disliked by everyone, the final race was actually the best one in 2012. Fernando Alonso won from 11th on the grid. Michael Schumacher scored a podium, his first of his comeback. As I mentioned, Pastor Maldonado and Lewis Hamilton came together, and Sebastian Vettel, well, he had an alternator failure. Ultimately, even a broken clock is right twice a day. While it's always sad to see a Formula One circuit, or at least part of a Formula One circuit, left to ruin, I, for one, won't miss Valencia. I'll see you next time.